Donald Trump breaks down in tears after hearing Hulk Hogan had passed at 71. Donald Trump breaks down after hearing Hulk Hogan passed away at 71. A heartfelt tribute to a wrestling legend. In an emotional turn of events, former U.S. President Donald Trump is brought to tears after hearing that his longtime friend and wrestling icon Hulk Hogan has passed away at age 71. This powerful video dives into Hogan's legendary biography, his impact on wrestling and pop culture, and the deep personal bond he shared with Donald Trump. Discover the untold stories behind their friendship. Relive Hulk Hogan's rise to superstardom, from WWE glory to pop culture dominance. Witness a side of Trump rarely seen, raw, real, and emotional. Whether you're a lifelong wrestling fan or new to the world of WWE, this video paints a heartfelt portrait of one of the greatest entertainers of all time, and how his legacy moved even a former president. Donald Trump stood silent for a moment. Cameras captured his eyes glistening under the harsh light of the press room. The former U.S. president, known for his bravado and unwavering confidence, suddenly looked small, shaken. The breaking news had just hit: Hulk Hogan, wrestling icon, pop culture titan, and Trump's longtime friend, had passed away at the age of 71. A tremble in his voice broke the room's tension as he whispered, "He was larger than life, and now he's gone." This wasn't just a celebrity death. This was the fall of an American myth, and for Trump, it was personal. The man who once stood in the ring with Hogan, who laughed with him backstage, who shook hands under the flashing lights of WrestleMania, had just lost a friend who symbolized power, charisma, and immortality. But how did we get here? How did Terry Gene Bollea, born in Augusta, Georgia in 1953, become Hulk Hogan, a name that would redefine wrestling, reshape entertainment, and forge a friendship with one of the most powerful men in the world? Hulk Hogan's journey was never ordinary. Long before the bright lights and title belts, he was a kid fascinated with superheroes and professional wrestling. Raised in Tampa, Florida, Hogan didn't grow up dreaming of fame. He loved baseball. He played guitar. He was just another boy in a Florida suburb until wrestling found him. It was in the 1970s when his life changed. A local promoter noticed his immense size, 6 feet 7 inches, nearly 300 pounds, and suggested he train. Hogan stepped into the ring, and it was like he had finally found the stage he was born for. Early gigs in the Florida circuit earned him respect, but it was when he traveled to Japan that he honed his skill and learned how to connect with fans on a deeper level. Back in the US, Hogan exploded into the mainstream thanks to one man, Vince McMahon. In 1984, Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, and just like that, Hulkamania was born. The red and yellow, the bandana, the signature 24-inch pythons, Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was a superhero come to life. The 1980s weren't just Hogan's golden age. They were wrestling's renaissance, and he was its golden god. His catchphrases, "Whatcha gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?" echoed in playgrounds and living rooms across America. He became a symbol of strength, justice, and charisma at a time when wrestling was breaking into mainstream consciousness. He wasn't just winning matches, he was winning over a generation. And that's where Donald Trump entered the picture. The glitz of the WWF, now WWE, in the 80s perfectly mirrored Trump's world: flash, wealth, ego, power. WrestleMania 4 and V were held at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. Not just as a venue sponsor, Trump was front and center, ringside, cheering, clapping, and making deals. The bond between the two men began here, mutual admiration wrapped in money, power, and spectacle. They weren't just two celebrities rubbing shoulders. Hogan and Trump genuinely liked each other. They spoke the same language: victory. They both knew how to work a crowd, how to turn critics into fans, and how to remain unforgettable. Hogan once said in an interview, "Trump's the real deal, brother. He knows what it takes to win." Trump, equally effusive, called Hogan a legend, a patriot, and a true friend. But Hogan wasn't content with just wrestling. He ventured into Hollywood. No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando, Thunder in Paradise, while the box office results varied, his fame never dipped. Saturday morning cartoons, action figures, video games, Hulk Hogan was the face of an empire. Kids idolized him. Adults admired his charm. And the world couldn't get enough of Hulkamania. But even the strongest icons have cracks. By the 1990s, Hogan began showing a darker edge. He turned heel in WCW, founding the New World Order, NWO, alongside Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. It was one of the most shocking turns in wrestling history, the all-American hero now playing the villain. Fans booed, but they still watched. Because Hogan had done what few legends ever could, he reinvented himself. Outside the ring, though, life was harder. The 2000s brought lawsuits, scandals, and public controversies. A leaked tape. A racial slur. The loss of endorsements. A family torn apart by tragedy. Hogan found himself at the center of headlines for all the wrong reasons. But even when the world turned on him, Donald Trump didn't. In 2007, during the WWE's Battle of the Billionaires, Trump was the main event, but he brought Hogan backstage for moral support. Off camera, Hogan offered advice, shared stories, and reminded Trump to play it straight, brother. Their bond was unshakable. In later years, as Hogan faded from the spotlight, Trump, then president, would still occasionally mention him. "He's a fighter," Trump once said during a campaign stop. "I know Hulk. He doesn't stay down for long." But today, that fighter is gone. Reports say Trump received the news during a private event in Florida. An aide whispered it into his ear. Trump went silent. When he addressed the room minutes later, his voice cracked. "We lost a hero today. We lost someone who made America proud, in and out of the ring." Witnesses say he excused himself shortly after. For a man often accused of emotional detachment, this was rare. Raw. Real. And unmistakably human. Because behind the bravado, Trump lost more than a wrestling partner. He lost a friend, one who stood beside him during his highs and lows, one who never needed politics to prove loyalty, one who defined charisma, power, and resilience for a generation. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not just about wrestling. It's not just about fame. It's about legacy. About friendship. About the emotional weight of losing someone who once seemed invincible. Terry Bollea, the man behind the Hulk Hogan persona, may have passed, but his presence remains. He was more than just a wrestler. He was a cultural earthquake. A once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. His matches were events. His words were gospel. His image, red bandana, yellow tank top, handlebar mustache, was iconic. From body-slamming Andre the Giant to mentoring rising stars, from starring in commercials to shaking hands with world leaders, Hulk Hogan's journey was unmatched. And Donald Trump, for all his controversies, knew that. That's why he broke down. Because even titans bleed when legends fall. And as fans light candles, post tributes, and replay Hogan's greatest hits, one thing becomes clear: Hulkamania didn't die. It simply moved on, from the ring to our hearts. If this tribute touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your favorite Hulk Hogan moment in the comments below. Let the world know how you remember the man who told us to train hard, say our prayers, and believe in ourselves. Because if you're a real American, you never forget the ones who fought for you. Donald Trump didn't attend many funerals. But this time, aides said, there was no hesitation. No speechwriters, no PR team, just a black suit, a bowed head, and the weight of decades pressing down on his shoulders. The service was private, held in Clearwater, Florida, close to where Hogan had lived out his final years. Trump sat in the front row, beside Hogan's children and longtime friends from both the wrestling and entertainment industries. As the pastor spoke, Trump stared straight ahead, eyes fixed, fingers tightly interlocked. Those who know him say they've never seen him so still. But that stillness carried a storm. Because this wasn't just about paying respects. This was about reckoning with time. Hogan wasn't supposed to die. Not like this. Not yet. He was the eternal hero, the man who body-slammed giants and won over millions. But now, he was a memory, and Trump, for once, looked like a man not in control of the moment. After the service, Trump broke his silence with a short statement to the press. "I lost a brother today," he said, voice low, eyes glassy. Hulk Hogan wasn't just a champion in the ring. He was a champion in life. He was there when I needed strength. He reminded me that loyalty still matters in this world. It was short, raw, and real. The truth is, their friendship had always been underestimated, a footnote in celebrity news. But behind the curtain, they were closer than anyone realized. Over the years, Hogan had been a quiet presence in Trump's life. Not a political advisor. Not a fundraiser. Just a loyal friend. When Trump's casinos were failing in the 90s, Hogan invited him to wrestling events, helping him stay visible. When Hogan's personal scandals made headlines, Trump defended him in interviews. "Everyone makes mistakes," he said once. "But not everyone keeps fighting. Hulk does." And that's what made their bond so unique. It wasn't transactional. It wasn't strategic. It was built on mutual admiration for toughness, resilience, and the ability to always get back up. There's a story few know. In 2015, when Trump was under fire during his first presidential campaign, Hogan called him privately. Trump was being criticized in the media, sponsors were pulling out, and some of his oldest allies were disappearing overnight. But not Hogan. He told Trump, "Brother, you just keep pressing on. They can't pin you down unless you stay down." Trump never forgot those words. It's no surprise, then, that when Hogan's health began to deteriorate in the late 2020s, Trump reached out frequently. They'd talk for hours, sometimes about politics, but mostly about the past, WrestleMania, the crowds, the laughs backstage, the dreams of two men who never wanted to be forgotten. In one call, Hogan joked, "If I go before you, make sure they play Real American at my funeral. And don't cheap out on the flowers." Trump laughed, but deep down, he hoped he'd never have to keep that promise. Yet here we are. Hogan's health had been in decline for years. Multiple back surgeries, chronic pain, and the toll of decades in the ring had worn down even the mightiest warrior. Still, he smiled for fans, posted updates, showed up at conventions. He never let the pain show. Because Hulk Hogan wasn't just a man, he was a persona. A promise. A symbol of fight and flair. But behind closed doors, he knew his time was running short. And so did Trump. That's what made the final call so painful. According to sources close to the family, Trump had tried to visit Hogan just days before he passed, but scheduling and security made it impossible. The two men spoke briefly over the phone. Hogan's voice was weak. Trump tried to cheer him up. "You're the strongest man I've ever known," he said. Hogan replied, "Nah, brother. That's you. I just played the part." Then came the silence. And then, the end. News outlets broke the story early morning: Hulk Hogan, legendary pro wrestler and pop culture icon, dead at 71. The world paused. Social media erupted. Fans around the globe began sharing tributes, photos, memories. "Hogan changed my life," wrote one. "He was my childhood hero," wrote another. But Trump, he didn't post. Not immediately. Because this time, words weren't enough. Not for a man who once made the earth shake with a leg drop. Not for a friend who had stood beside him through everything. Instead, Trump grieved privately. He spoke to Hogan's children. He arranged for flowers, not cheap ones, to be sent in his name, with a handwritten note: "You were the man. And you'll always be the man. Donald." Later that evening, he posted a photo, him and Hogan, backstage at WrestleMania, laughing like two school kids. No caption. Just the moment. And that single image said more than any press release ever could. Because this wasn't about politics. this wasn't about image. This was about friendship, real, unfiltered, and unbreakable. A bond between two titans who saw themselves reflected in each other's journeys. Hulk Hogan may be gone, but his voice, that deep, gravelly "whatcha gonna do, brother?" still echoes in arenas, in memories, and now, in Donald Trump's tears. It reminds us that no one, no matter how powerful, is immune to grief. That even presidents cry. That even legends fall. And that sometimes, the greatest tribute you can give a friend, is to feel their loss like it was your own. If this story moved you, take a moment. Like this video. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories. And drop your favorite Hulk Hogan memory in the comments below. Because legends never truly die. They live on, in the hearts they moved, and the tears they leave behind. There was something poetic about the way Hulk Hogan lived. Always larger than life, always loud, always present. But now, in his absence, the silence feels deafening. And for Donald Trump, that silence carried an unbearable weight. In the days following Hogan's death, the former president retreated from the public eye, no rallies, no interviews, no press appearances. Those close to him said he wasn't just mourning a friend. He was mourning the end of an era. It's easy to forget just how much Hogan meant to America, especially to a generation that grew up watching him tear shirts, slam giants, and preach the gospel of training, prayers, and vitamins. Hulkamania wasn't just a wrestling gimmick. It was a cultural force. It was patriotism wrapped in spandex and sweat. It was hope. And for Trump, who came from a world of glitzy deals and skyscrapers, Hogan was a different kind of titan. A working-class hero. A man who rose not through Wall Street, but through steel cages and body slams. There was an authenticity about Hogan that Trump respected. They were both showmen, yes, but Hogan wore his heart on his sleeve. That's what made him special. As the week of tributes rolled on, WWE released a heartfelt video montage. Old clips from WrestleMania. Childhood fans now grown up, recounting the first time they saw Hogan live. Wrestlers like John Cena and Roman Reigns shared memories. Even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson called Hogan a blueprint for greatness. The outpouring was massive. But when Trump finally broke his silence publicly, it wasn't through Twitter or Truth Social. It was during a private gathering in Palm Beach, a charity event Hogan had once helped organize. Trump took the stage, looked out at the crowd, and paused for a long, heavy beat. He was thunder, Trump said. When Hogan walked into a room, you didn't have to ask if he was there. You felt it. In your chest. In your bones. He shared stories, some funny, some deeply emotional. Like the time Hogan helped him recover from a business deal gone sour by organizing a charity match to raise millions. Or the time they both visited a sick child backstage, and Hogan stayed for 2 hours signing autographs and making the kid laugh. He didn't do it for cameras, Trump said. He did it because he cared. At one point, Trump's voice cracked again. We always thought he'd live forever. And maybe in a way, he will. Those in the room said it was one of the most honest speeches Trump had ever given. But the tributes didn't stop there. Fans across the country organized candlelight vigils. In Tampa, a mural of Hogan appeared overnight, painted on the side of a gym he used to train in. Heroes live forever, it read in bold yellow letters, with Hogan mid-leg drop painted beneath it. In New York, Madison Square Garden dimmed its lights for a full minute before a WWE house show. Commentators spoke in hushed tones. Even the crowd, usually rowdy, stood in respectful silence. And back in Clearwater, where Hogan's family remained cloistered away from the media, flowers kept arriving. Dozens, then hundreds. Bouquets wrapped in red and yellow. Handwritten notes. One card, signed simply Donald, read, "You made me proud to call you friend." The wrestling world, too, felt a tectonic shift. No one could quite believe it, that the man who defined professional wrestling was really gone. Commentators struggled for words. Legends like Ric Flair, Stone Cold, and Kurt Angle shared personal memories. "He was the reason I got into wrestling," Flair said. "We were competitors, yes. But more than that, we were brothers." Back at WWE headquarters, Vince McMahon, rarely seen these days, reportedly asked for a full-scale tribute show. Not just a memorial montage. A night dedicated to Hogan. An arena full of fans chanting Hogan. Hogan. Hogan, one last time. A 10-bell salute. A celebration. And when Trump was asked if he'd attend, he didn't hesitate. "I'll be there," he said. "He showed up for me more times than I can count. I owe him that, and so much more." Behind the scenes, those organizing the event worked with Hogan's family to include personal touches. His old entrance theme. Footage of his very first match. A segment replaying his infamous match against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, a moment still considered one of the greatest in wrestling history. And for the first time, the WWE planned to unveil a permanent statue of Hogan to stand in the Hall of Fame atrium. But perhaps the most moving moment came when Trump took the stage at the tribute night. The crowd wasn't sure what to expect. The lights dimmed. Hogan's music played. Then silence. Trump stood there, holding back tears, looking out at a sea of signs that read "Thank you, Hulk." And then he spoke. "Tonight, we don't just honor a wrestler. We honor a giant. A warrior. A symbol of hope." He continued, voice steady but deeply emotional. "Hulk Hogan taught us to dream bigger, fight harder, and love louder. He taught us that no matter how tough life gets, we could always stand up, cup our ears to the world, and say, 'Whatcha gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?'" He paused, then whispered, almost too softly to hear. "Goodbye, brother." The crowd erupted in applause. Cheers. Tears. And chants of "Hogan! Hogan! Hogan!" echoed through the arena like thunder. It was a moment wrestling fans, and Donald Trump, would never forget. Because when a legend dies, he doesn't just leave behind memories. He leaves behind echoes. Footsteps that never fade. And for millions, Hulk Hogan's echo is still running wild. As the days turned into weeks, the void left by Hulk Hogan's passing only grew deeper. Not just for fans who had idolized him through decades of sweat-drenched matches and heartfelt promos, but for the man who had stood shoulder to shoulder with him in arenas, in press rooms, and in private, Donald Trump. In a world where friendships often flicker like flashbulbs, theirs endured. Through scandals, through politics, through reinventions. It was never